The USS Retribution drifted through space, its hull scarred and smoking from the battle at Kepler's Gate. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching as alien ships fled in all directions. For the first time in their history, the unstoppable Kethavar were running away. "Damage report," Jake called out. Chief Engineer Paul Davis looked up from his console with a grin. "Hull breaches on decks 5 through 7, engines running at 60%, and half our weapons are offline. But, sir, we're still flying." "More importantly," added First Officer Amy Rodriguez, "look at this." She pointed to the tactical display, showing the retreating alien fleet. "They're not moving together anymore. Each ship is picking its own escape route." Jake stared at the display in amazement. The perfect coordination that had made the aliens so deadly was completely broken. Ships were colliding with each other, choosing different directions, even firing on their own forces by mistake. The Hive. "Mind is fragmenting," reported Dr. Helen Barnes from her science station. "Our chaos amplifier didn't just confuse them. It broke their ability to think as one organism." Suddenly, communications started flooding in from across human space. "Admiral," Lisa Carter's voice came through first, filled with excitement and disbelief. "Jake, what did you do out there? We're getting reports from our deep space monitoring stations. Alien fleets throughout the galaxy have stopped their attacks. Some are retreating, others are just sitting in space like they don't know what to do." Jake felt a wave of emotion wash over him. They had done more than win a single battle. They had broken the aliens' greatest weapon, their unity. "Admiral, recommend all human ships switch to unpredictable tactics immediately. Don't give the aliens time to adapt." Already happening. Every ship captain in the fleet is throwing out their tactical manuals. Our people are fighting like humans. Over the next few hours, reports continued to stream in from across the galaxy. On the world of New Sparta, human colonists had used farming equipment to drive off alien ground forces. Near the Vegan trading routes, merchant ships were ramming alien cruisers while broadcasting children's songs. At the Centauri shipyards, workers had armed construction mechs with mining lasers and were fighting aliens in ways that defied every rule of combat. "It's spreading," Amy observed, reading through the reports. "Other species are starting to copy our tactics." Jake pulled up a communication from the Zephyrian refugee fleet. The crystal beings had survived after all, hiding in the outer system, when their homeworld was destroyed. Now they were attacking alien ships using harmonic frequencies that shattered the aliens' hull materials. The Altarian survivors were using their knowledge of zero-gravity mining to turn asteroids into weapons. The Vegan traders were employing smuggling tricks to appear and disappear around alien fleets. Each species was fighting in their own unique way, refusing to follow the predictable patterns the aliens expected. "Captain," Paul called out. "Incoming. Priority message from Earth. It's Dr. Walsh." Kevin Walsh appeared on the main screen, his wild hair even more disheveled than usual. "Jake, you magnificent lunatic, you actually did it. But listen carefully. We're picking up massive energy surges from deep space. The alien home systems are trying to re-establish control over their scattered fleets." "Can they do it?" Jake asked. "Maybe, if we give them time. But I have an idea. Your ship proved that chaos can break their coordination. What if we could amplify that effect across the entire galaxy?" Jake felt a chill of excitement. "What do you need?" "I need you to take the Retribution to the center of the nearest alien fleet and activate your chaos amplifier at maximum power. Not just to confuse the local ships, but to broadcast the signal through their own communication network." Amy looked worried. "Sir, that would mean flying directly into the heart of their forces. Even confused, they'll still try to destroy us. And the amplifier at maximum power might overload our own systems," Paul added. Jake looked around at his crew. They had already accomplished the impossible once. Could they do it again? "Dr. Walsh, if this works, what happens to the alien empire?" Kevin's expression grew serious. If my calculations are correct, it would cause a cascade failure throughout their entire hive mind network. Every alien ship, every station, every outpost would be cut off from the collective consciousness. They'd have to learn to think as individuals for the first time in their species' history. And if your calculations are wrong, then we'll probably die in a very spectacular explosion. Jake made his decision. Set course for the largest alien fleet we can find. All hands, prepare for one more impossible mission. The Retribution limped through space toward a massive alien formation that was trying to regroup near a dead star system. As they approached, Jake could see the aliens attempting to restore their coordination. Ships were slowly moving back into formation, their communication signals growing stronger. "They're adapting," Amy reported, "learning to compensate for our interference. Then we better hit them before they figure it out completely," Jake replied. "Paul, take us right into the center of their formation. Helen, prepare the chaos amplifier for maximum output." The scarred human ship accelerated toward the alien fleet, like a meteor carrying the hopes of the galaxy. Enemy vessels opened fire, but the Retribution dodged and weaved through their attacks with the same unpredictable movement that had served them so well before. "Entering the formation now," Amy called out as alien ships surrounded them on all sides. "Helen, activate the amplifier. Give them everything we've got." The chaos amplifier powered up, drawing energy from every system on the ship. The bridge lights dimmed as massive amounts of power flowed into the device. Then, with a sound like thunder in space, it unleashed a wave of pure chaotic energy that spread through the alien communication network like wildfire. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Every alien ship in the formation stopped moving at exactly the same moment. Then, one by one, they began drifting apart. The perfect unity that had made them unstoppable was gone forever. But the wave didn't stop there. It traveled through the quantum communication network, reaching alien fleets across the galaxy. Within minutes, reports were coming in from everywhere. Alien ships were shutting down, their crews apparently unable to function without their collective consciousness. "It worked," Helen breathed. "The entire network is collapsing." Jake stood on the bridge of the damaged but victorious Retribution, watching as the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known simply fell apart. Not destroyed by superior firepower or advanced technology, but defeated by the one thing they couldn't understand or predict: the stubborn, chaotic, magnificent unpredictability of free-thinking beings. "Admiral Carter to all ships," came the voice from Earth. "The alien threat is over. Repeat, the alien threat is over. All forces, begin search and rescue operations for survivors of conquered worlds." As the Retribution headed home, Jake reflected on what they had accomplished. They hadn't just saved humanity, they had saved the very idea that individual creativity and chaos could triumph over perfect order and control. The galaxy was free, and it would never be the same again. The alien fleet arrived at Kepler's gate like a storm made of metal and death. Captain Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the USS Retribution as hundreds of massive ships phased into normal space. Each one was the size of a city, their dark hulls covered in those shifting patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Contact," reported Amy Rodriguez from her position as first officer. "Enemy fleet is taking standard attack formation. They're moving exactly like we predicted they would." Jake nodded grimly. The aliens had studied 17 conquered civilizations. They knew how space battles were supposed to work: formation attacks, concentrated firepower, logical tactics. They expected human defenses to follow the same patterns every other species had used. What they didn't know was that the human defensive positions they could see were just for show. "All ships, this is Admiral Carter," came the voice from Earth. "Defense Command. Remember, make it look real. Fight hard, but stick to the plan." Jake watched as the first wave of human defenders engaged the alien fleet. Orbital platforms opened fire with everything they had. Human destroyers and cruisers charged forward in neat formations, following textbook attack patterns. To any observer, It looked like humanity was making a desperate but conventional last stand. The aliens responded exactly as expected. Their ships moved with perfect coordination, sharing information instantly through their hive mind. Human weapons bounced harmlessly off their adaptive armor. Human ships exploded under the aliens' strange energy weapons. But something odd was happening. When human minds exploded, they didn't cause damage. Instead, they released clouds of strange particles that seemed to interfere with alien communications. When human ships were destroyed, they broke apart in ways that scattered unusual metal fragments throughout space. Phase 1 is working, Amy reported quietly. The interference particles are building up around their fleet. Jake smiled. Dr. Kevin. Walsh's plan was more complex than just building one crazy ship. The entire battle was designed to look like a normal defeat while actually preparing for something the aliens had never seen before. "Enemy fleet is pushing forward," reported Chief Engineer Paul Davis. "They're breaking through our defensive lines right on schedule." The Retribution hung hidden inside the corona of Kepler's Gate's star, using advanced stealth technology and the star's own energy to mask their presence. The ship itself was unlike anything that had ever been built. Parts of it came from human warships, parts from civilian vessels, and parts from alien technology they had salvaged. It looked like it had been built by someone who didn't understand the rules of ship design. Because in many ways it had been. "Alien fleet is entering the inner system," Amy reported. "They're moving into the trap zone." Jake took a deep breath. "All stations, prepare for controlled chaos protocol. Remember, from this moment on, nothing we do should make sense to anyone. Watching." The bridge crew nodded. They had trained for 4 months to fight in ways that violated every principle of space warfare. They had practiced being unpredictable, irrational, and completely human. "Paul, give me a completely random course through the alien fleet." Sir, that would put us directly in the middle of their formation with enemies on all sides." "Perfect. Amy, I want weapons firing in all directions simultaneously. Don't aim for anything specific. Just make it look like we've lost our minds." "Sir, that's tactically insane. Exactly what I was hoping for." The USS Retribution burst from its hiding, placed like a comet made of metal and fury. It materialized directly in the center of the alien formation and immediately began doing things that no sane ship captain would ever attempt. The ship fired weapons in every direction at once, not trying to hit specific targets, but creating a web of energy that seemed to have no pattern. It spun and twisted through space in ways that defied physics, using experimental engines that bent gravity around the ship. The aliens responded with confusion. For the first time in their species' history, they encountered something they couldn't predict. Their hive mind, which had always been their greatest strength, began sending conflicting signals as it tried to process the Retribution's impossible behavior. "They're trying to surround us," Amy reported. "Good. Paul, ram speed toward that big ship on our left. Sir, that will destroy us both." "Will it? Let's find out." The Retribution accelerated directly toward a massive alien dreadnought, looking like it was about to commit suicide. At the last moment, Paul activated the ship's experimental spacefold drive, causing it to appear on the other side of the enemy vessel without actually traveling through the space between. The alien ship, expecting a collision, had braced for impact. Instead, it found itself firing at empty space while the Retribution appeared behind it, weapons blazing. "Their coordination is breaking down," Amy reported with excitement. "Look at their formation. Ships are starting to hesitate before moving." Jake could see it too. The alien fleet, which had moved with perfect unity just minutes before, was beginning to show gaps in their coordination. Some ships moved too slowly, others too quickly. For the first time, alien vessels were getting in each other's way. "They can't predict us," Jake realized. "Their hive mind is overloading trying to figure out what we're going to do next." The battle intensified as more human ships began adopting the Retribution's insane tactics. A destroyer used a gas giant's gravity to slingshot itself into an impossible attack angle. A frigate began broadcasting classical music while ramming alien ships. A group of fighters started flying in formation patterns that spelled out rude, words in Earth languages. None of it made any tactical sense. All of it was completely, brilliantly human. "Captain, massive energy spike from the enemy flagship," Paul reported. "I think they're trying to boost their communication signals." "Then let's give them something really confusing to think about," Jake said. "Amy, activate the chaos amplifier." Dr. Helen Barnes had spent months developing the chaos amplifier, a device that took human unpredictability and turned it into a weapon. It analyzed the crew's behavior patterns and then broadcast even more random signals directly into space. The effect on the alien fleet was immediate and devastating. Ships that had been moving with purpose suddenly stopped dead in space. Others began moving in circles. Some started firing at their own allies. "My God," Amy whispered, "we're actually winning." The alien hive mind, which had conquered 17 star systems, was breaking apart under the strain of trying to understand an enemy that refused to follow any logical pattern. Their greatest strength had become their greatest weakness. "All human ships, this is Admiral Carter. The enemy is in retreat. Repeat, the enemy is retreating." Jake couldn't believe it. The impossible had happened. One crazy ship and a plan that made no sense had stopped an enemy that had never been defeated. But as he watched the alien fleet beginning to withdraw in disorder, Jake knew this was just the beginning. They had proven that the aliens could be beaten. Now they had to figure out how to beat them everywhere else. The USS Retribution had opened a door that could never be closed. Humanity had shown the galaxy that sometimes the best way to win was to refuse to play by the rules. The war room at Earth Defense Command was filled with the best military minds humanity had to offer. Admiral Lisa Carter sat at the head of the long table, looking at the faces of generals, admirals, and scientists who would decide the fate of their species. The intelligence from Captain Morrison's mission had shaken everyone to their core. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," said General Frank Collins, his weathered face grim. "These aliens have destroyed 17 star systems. They get stronger with every conquest. They share a collective mind that makes them perfectly coordinated. And they're heading straight for us." "That's correct," Lisa replied. "Captain Morrison's data shows they'll reach our outer colonies in less than 5 months. Dr. Kevin Walsh, a thin man with wild gray hair, leaned forward in his chair. Kevin was known throughout the military as a strategic genius, but also as someone who thought differently than everyone else. His ideas were often called crazy, but they usually worked. "Admiral, with respect, everyone in this room is thinking about this wrong," Kevin said. "We're trying to figure out how to fight them using conventional warfare. But conventional warfare is exactly why every other species has failed." General Collins frowned. "What do you mean?" "The aliens learn from every battle, every tactic, every weapon system they encounter. They've fought against the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy and absorbed all their knowledge. If we try to out-tech them or outgun them, we'll lose just like everyone else." "So what do you suggest?" Lisa asked. "That we surrender?" Kevin smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant smile. "No. I suggest we do something no other species has ever tried. Something the aliens can't predict because they've never seen it before." "Which is?" "We fight like humans." The room erupted in confused voices. General Collins slammed his hand on the table. "That doesn't make any sense. We are humans." Kevin stood up and walked to the large display screen showing the alien fleet's projected path. "No, we've been fighting like we think we should fight. Big ships, organized formations, logical tactics, just like every other species in the galaxy. But that's not what makes humans special." Lisa raised her hand for silence. "Explain." Captain Morrison's report mentioned something interesting. The alien hive mind becomes unstable when faced with truly unpredictable variables. Most species follow logical patterns in warfare. They do what makes sense. But humans? We're the species that charges machine gun nests, that fights when we should run, that wins battles we have no business winning. Dr. Helen Barnes, who had returned with Morrison's crew, spoke up from the back of the room. The psychological profiles we gathered support this. The alien collective consciousness works by predicting outcomes and adapting accordingly. But human behavior often defies logical prediction. Kevin nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. We're not going to beat them with superior firepower. We're going to beat them by being completely, utterly, magnificently unpredictable. How? General Collins asked. Kevin pulled up a new display showing ship designs and tactical formations that looked like nothing anyone had ever seen before. We build one ship, not a fleet, not an armada. One single, completely insane warship that breaks every rule of space combat. The room fell silent as everyone stared at the bizarre design on the screen. The ship looked like someone had taken parts from a dozen different vessel types and welded them together in ways that shouldn't work. You want to put all our resources into building one ship? Lisa asked. Not just any ship. A ship that even our own people can't predict. Look at these specifications. Weapons that fire in patterns that change randomly. Armor that gets stronger when it's damaged. Engines that can make the ship move in ways that violate basic physics. General Collins shook his head. This is madness. Yes, Kevin said with a grin. That's exactly the point. Lisa studied the design more carefully. The more she looked at it, the more she understood what Kevin was trying to achieve. You want to create a ship that even we can't predict. If we can't predict it, neither can they. And if they can't predict it, their greatest advantage becomes useless. Captain Morrison, who had been quiet throughout the meeting, finally spoke. What about crew selection? You can't just put anyone on a ship like this. Kevin's eyes lit up. That's the best part. We don't want our most disciplined officers. We want our most creative ones. People who think outside the box, who make decisions based on instinct rather than training. We want the officers other commanders think are a little bit crazy. You want a crew of misfits, Amy Rodriguez said. She had been promoted after the reconnaissance mission and was now standing beside Morrison. I want a crew that fights like humans actually fight when their backs are against the wall. Not like textbook soldiers, but like desperate, creative, stubborn humans who refuse to give up. Lisa looked around the room. The idea was insane, but it was also the first plan anyone had suggested that didn't rely on trying to match the aliens' strengths. How long would it take to build this ship? 4 months, if we put every shipyard and every resource into it. We'd have to strip parts from existing ships, use experimental technology that hasn't been tested, and push our manufacturing capabilities beyond their limits. General Collins still looked skeptical. And you think one ship can stop an entire alien fleet? Kevin's expression grew serious. I think one ship, crewed by humans being completely human, might be able to do something no alien collective consciousness can predict or counter. I think it might be able to introduce enough chaos into their perfect system to break it. Lisa made her decision. We'll do it. General Collins, I want every shipyard working on this project. Dr. Walsh, you'll oversee the design and construction. Captain Morrison, I want you to help select the crew. What about the ship's name? Morrison asked. Lisa thought for a moment. USS Retribution. Because we're going to show these aliens what happens when they threaten humanity. As the meeting broke up, people began rushing to their new assignments. The most ambitious and desperate shipbuilding project in human history was about to begin. In 4 months, they would launch a single warship against an enemy that had never been defeated. But for the first time since the crisis began, Lisa felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Not because their plan was safe or logical or likely to succeed, but because it was completely, utterly human. The aliens had learned how to defeat every rational strategy in the galaxy. But they had never faced an enemy that fought with heart instead of logic, with creativity instead of calculation, with stubborn human determination instead of cold mathematical precision. The USS Retribution would be more than just a warship. It would be a declaration that humanity would not go quietly into the dark. They would fight in their own way, on their own terms, and they would show the galaxy what it meant to be human. Construction began the next day, and with it, the most desperate gamble in human history. 3 weeks into their journey, the USS Defiant drifted silently through the graveyard of what had once been the Altarian system. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the main viewer, staring at the empty space where 7 planets had once orbited, a yellow star. Now there was nothing but cosmic dust and twisted metal debris. "Sensors show no life signs anywhere in the system," reported Amy Rodriguez. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "It's like the planets were never here at all." Chief Engineer Helen Barnes looked up from her readings with horror in her eyes. "Captain, the mineral composition of this debris field is wrong. The metals have been processed, refined, and shaped. Someone took entire worlds and turned them into raw materials." Jake felt his blood run cold. The scale of destruction was beyond anything he had imagined. The aliens hadn't just destroyed the Altarian worlds. They had harvested them, turning billions of tons of rock and metal into something else entirely. "Paul, any sign of the enemy fleet?" Jake asked. Communications Officer Paul Davis shook his head. "Nothing on long-range sensors, sir, but I'm picking up some kind of energy signature from the edge of the system. It's faint, but it doesn't match anything in our databases." "Take us closer." Nice and slow. The Defiant moved carefully through the debris field, its new stealth systems hiding them from any watching eyes. As they approached the energy signature, the main viewer showed something that made everyone on the bridge gasp. A massive structure hung in space, easily the size of a small moon. It was dark gray and covered in strange geometric patterns that seemed to shift and move when you looked at them directly. Hundreds of smaller ships moved around it like insects around a hive. "My God," Amy whispered. "Look at the size of that thing." But it wasn't the size that frightened Jake the most. It was what the structure was doing. Long, tentacle-like arms, extended from its surface, processing the last remnants of the Altarian worlds. Rock and metal flowed into the structure like water, disappearing into its dark interior. "They're still here," Jake said. "They're still feeding." Helen's instruments beeped softly. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildups throughout that structure. Whatever they're doing in there, it's using more power than most star systems generate. Can we get closer without being detected?" "The stealth systems are holding, but if we get much closer, they might spot us anyway. These aliens have technology we don't understand." Jake made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "Take us in. We need to see what they're really doing." As the Defiant crept closer to the alien structure, they began to pick up strange signals. Not radio waves or standard communications, but something else entirely. Something that seemed to pulse and flow like a living thing. "Paul, are you getting this?" Jake asked. Paul nodded, his face pale. "It's not language, sir. It's more like shared thoughts. Like they're all connected somehow, thinking together as one massive mind." "A hive mind?" Amy asked. "More than that," Helen said, studying her readings. "Look at these patterns. Every ship, every part of that structure, they're all synchronized perfectly. No delays, no miscommunication. They move together like parts of the same body." Jake watched as dozens of alien ships moved around the structure in perfect harmony. There were no collision warnings, no traffic control, no hesitation. Each ship knew exactly where every other ship was going to be before it got there. That's how they're so effective, he realized. They don't just fight as a fleet. They fight as a single organism. Every ship knows what every other ship is thinking. The Defiant continued its careful approach, recording everything. The alien ships were unlike anything in human space. They were smooth and organic-looking, with no visible weapons or engines. Yet sensors showed they were heavily armed and incredibly fast. "Captain, I'm detecting movement," Amy reported. "One of their ships is heading this way." Jake's heart jumped. "Are we detected?" "I don't think so. It looks like a patrol route." They watched as an alien ship the size of a human cruiser glided past them, so close they could see details on its hull. The surface seemed to ripple and shift like living skin. Strange symbols appeared and disappeared across its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Did you see that?" Helen whispered. "The hull material is changing structure in real time. It's not just armor, it's adaptive armor." As the alien ship passed, the Defiant's computers automatically recorded everything they could. But what they discovered in the data analysis made their situation even more terrifying. The ship's configuration changed 3 times while we were watching it, Helen reported. First it was optimized for speed, then for stealth, then for combat. All in the space of a few minutes. "They don't just adapt their tactics," Jake said grimly. "They adapt their technology in real time." Paul looked up from his station with fear in his eyes. "Sir, I've been analyzing the communication signals. The patterns are getting stronger. I think more ships are coming." "How many more?" "I can't tell. The signals are overlapping, merging together. It's like counting individual drops in an ocean." Jake knew they had to leave, but they needed more information. "Helen, scan that structure one more time. Focus on the areas where they're processing the planetary material." Helen's readings showed something that made her hands shake. "Captain, they're not just harvesting raw materials. They're harvesting information too. Genetic patterns, cultural databases, even the quantum structures of matter itself. They're learning everything about the species they destroy." "Learning what?" "How they think, how they fight, how they build things. Every conquest makes them smarter, more adaptable. They're not just taking resources, they're taking knowledge." The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. Every species the aliens destroyed made them stronger. Every world they consumed taught them new ways to conquer the next one. They were like a cosmic cancer, growing stronger with everything they devoured. "That's how they've been so successful," Amy said quietly. "They learn from every enemy, adapt to every defense. By the time they reach a new target, they already know how to defeat it." Suddenly, alarms began beeping throughout the ship. Paul's voice was tight with panic. "Captain, massive energy surge from the alien structure. I think they know we're here." "Get us out of here! Now!" The Defiant turned and accelerated away from the alien structure as fast as its engines could push it. Behind them, the space around the massive harvesting station began to fill with alien ships, all moving with perfect coordination to search for the intruder. As they jumped to faster-than-light speed, Jake looked back one last time at the horror they were leaving behind. The aliens weren't just destroyers. They were collectors, gathering the knowledge and resources of entire civilizations to fuel their endless expansion. And now they knew humanity was out there, watching them. The race back to Earth had begun, carrying with them the most terrifying intelligence any human had ever gathered. The enemy was not just powerful. They were getting stronger with every world they consumed, learning new ways to kill and conquer. But buried in that terrible knowledge was something else. Something that might just save them all. The sun was setting on Kepler 442b when the last Zephyrian ship disappeared into hyperspace. For the first time in 3 weeks, the sky above New Haven was clear of enemy vessels. Only the great black shape of the Vengeance remained, hanging in the atmosphere like a dark guardian angel. Lisa Morgan stood on the observation deck with the other colony leaders, watching as the massive ship began to descend. She had seen big ships before, but nothing like this. The Vengeance was so large it cast a shadow over half the colony as it came down. "Where is it going to land?" Dr. Amy Johnson asked. "There's no landing pad big enough for something that size." They got their answer as the ship settled onto the flat plain outside the colony walls. The ground shook slightly as landing supports extended from its hull. Up close, the vessel was even more impressive and mysterious than it had seemed in space. Jake Peterson was scanning the ship with his equipment. "I'm getting some strange readings. The hull material is unlike anything in our databases. And those patterns along the sides. They almost look alive." Captain Steve Davis was studying the ship with his military training. "Look at those weapon ports. I count at least 50 different gun positions, and that's just what I can see. This thing could fight an entire fleet by itself." "It just did," Kelly White reminded him. The main door of the ship opened with a soft hissing sound. A ramp extended down to the ground, and figures began walking out. The colonists watched carefully as their rescuers appeared. Captain John Marshall was the first to emerge. He was a tall man who looked to be in his 40s, with gray hair and steady blue eyes. He wore a uniform that was clearly Earth military, but with small differences that made it look more advanced. Behind him came 6 other crew members. They looked human, but there was something different about the way they moved. They walked with perfect coordination, never bumping into each other or looking uncertain about where to go. "Welcome to New Haven," Lisa said as she approached the captain. "I'm Administrator Lisa Morgan. On behalf of everyone here, thank you for saving our lives." Captain Marshall smiled, but Lisa noticed that his eyes seemed to be studying everything around him at the same time. "Administrator Morgan, I'm glad we could help. No human colony should have to face the Zephyrians alone." Dr. Amy stepped forward. "Captain, I'm Dr. Amy Johnson, the colony's chief medical officer. Your timing was incredible. How did you get here so fast?" "We were already in the area when we received your distress call," Marshall said. But his answer felt incomplete, like he was not telling them everything. Jake could not hold back his curiosity. "Sir, I have to ask about your ship. That technology is far beyond anything in our military databases. How is that possible?" Captain Marshall looked at his crew members for a moment before answering. "The galaxy is full of dangers that the general population doesn't know about. Sometimes Earth has to develop special tools to deal with special threats." Steve was not satisfied with that answer. "Captain, with respect, I served in Earth defense for 10 years. I know what our ships can do. The Vengeance has weapons that can erase matter from existence. That's not just advanced technology. That's something completely new. Let's just say that Earth has been busier than most people realize," Marshall replied. "There are projects in development that aren't ready for public knowledge yet." As they talked, Lisa noticed more strange things about the crew. They never seemed to get tired, even though they had just fought a major battle. Their equipment had no manufacturer markings that she could recognize. And their eyes. There was something in their eyes that suggested they had seen things beyond normal human experience. Dr. Amy was examining one of the crew members who had been injured during the ground battle. "This is interesting," she said quietly to Lisa. "His blood work is normal, but his reflexes are 3 times faster than they should be. And his bone density is off the charts." "What does that mean?" Lisa whispered back. "I'm not sure. It's like he's been enhanced somehow. Captain Marshall was organizing supply drops for the colonists. His people worked with amazing efficiency, bringing food, medical supplies, and equipment from their ship. They seemed to know exactly what was needed without being told." "How long will you be staying?" Lisa asked the captain. "Just long enough to make sure you're secure and to help repair your defenses," Marshall said. "We have other colonies to check on." "Other colonies? Are there more attacks happening?" Marshall's expression became serious. "The Zephyrians have been getting bolder lately. This isn't the first colony they've attacked this month. But word is spreading about what happened here. Other alien species are starting to take notice." Jake was recording everything for the colony's official records. "Captain, for our reports, can you tell us more about the Vengeance? What class of ship is it? When was it built?" "That information is classified," Marshall said simply. "What I can tell you is that there are more ships like the Vengeance protecting human space. Earth hasn't forgotten about the frontier colonies." Over the next 3 days, the crew of the Vengeance helped repair the colony's damaged buildings and defense systems. But the more the colonists watched them work, the more questions they had. Kelly noticed that the crew members never seemed to sleep. "I've been monitoring them for 72 hours, she told Lisa. "They work in shifts, but the shifts never stop. It's like they don't need rest." Steve observed their training exercises. "They move like soldiers, but better than any soldiers I've ever seen. Their coordination is perfect. They never make mistakes." Dr. Amy made another disturbing discovery. "I've been studying their equipment. The metal is unlike anything I know. It's stronger than steel, but lighter than aluminum. And their computers. The processing power is incredible." On the third morning, Captain Marshall announced that they would be leaving. The colonists gathered to say goodbye to their mysterious rescuers. "Will we see you again?" Lisa asked. "Probably not," Marshall said. "But you won't be alone. We're always watching the frontier. When human colonies are in danger, help will come. But how will you know if we need help again?" Marshall smiled. "Trust me, we'll know." The Vengeance began to rise into the sky, its hull shimmering in the morning light. As it reached the edge of the atmosphere, something impossible happened. The ship simply faded away, becoming transparent and then invisible. "Where did it go?" Jake asked, staring at his instruments. "It didn't go into hyperspace," Kelly said. "It just disappeared." Dr. Amy was still staring at the empty sky. "What kind of technology can make a ship that size invisible?" Steve shook his head. "The same kind that can erase matter from existence, I guess." In the days that followed, the official reports would say that New Haven Colony was rescued by an Earth Defense Force patrol ship that happened to be in the area. But the colonists knew they had witnessed something far more significant. Word began to spread through the frontier colonies and even to alien civilizations. Earth was not the weak, scattered civilization that many had believed. Hidden in the darkness between stars, humanity had developed technology that seemed almost magical. The age of underestimating Earth was over. And across the galaxy, both friends and enemies began to wonder what other secrets humanity was keeping.